The heel of a stiletto came down on a pregnant woman's belly at her own baby shower in front of 200 guests. But here's what the attacker didn't know. She didn't know that ultrasound would reveal not one baby, not twins, 4 babies, quadruplets, 4 heirs to a billion-dollar empire. She didn't know the wife she tried to destroy had been recording everything. Every thread,
Vivian,
every
darling,
lie,
what happened? Are you all
every
right?
secret the Ashford family had buried for 30 years.
Don't pretend you care,
And she
Grant.
certainly didn't know that the
Go
quiet
ahead,
woman
Claudette.
from
Tell me
Ohio,
again how you
the
orchestrated
one they
everything.
called
I want the
spineless,
district attorney to hear
the
it clearly.
one they thought would take
Can't
their
do
money
this
and
to me.
disappear. She was about to burn their entire world to the ground. This is the story of Vivian Ashford, a woman who lost everything in a garden of rose petals and rose from those ashes to become something they never expected, something dangerous, something unstoppable. Stay with me until the end, because the twist at minute 73, you won't see it coming. The heel of Tessa's stiletto came down on Vivian's belly before anyone could scream. The sound was the worst part. Not a thud, not a crack. Something softer. Something that made 200 guests freeze in collective horror. Time fractured into slow-motion fragments. Crystal champagne flutes suspended in manicured hands. The string quartet's violins going silent mid-note. Pink and blue streamers swaying in a breeze that seemed to have stopped breathing along with everyone else. Vivian Ashford lay on the manicured grass of the Ashford estate garden. Rose petals stuck to her cheek. The taste of copper filled her mouth where she had bitten her tongue. Her hands wrapped around her 7 months pregnant belly as pain shot through her entire body like electricity. Above her stood a woman in white, blonde hair perfectly curled, red lipstick the color of arterial blood, eyes blazing with something beyond anger, something that looked like triumph. "You think a baby changes anything?" Tessa Monroe screamed. Her voice echoed off the stone walls of the garden. "You think carrying his child makes you special? Makes you irreplaceable?" Vivian couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, could only feel the throbbing where that designer heel had landed, could only see the faces of her guests frozen in expressions of disbelief. 3 feet away, her mother-in-law, Claudette Ashford, stood motionless, champagne glass still in hand, face arranged in careful neutrality, not moving toward her fallen daughter-in-law, not calling for help, just watching, observing, like a scientist examining a specimen. The paralysis broke. Rosemary Delgado launched herself across the garden like a guided missile. Vivian's best friend since college, the woman who had warned her about Grant Ashford from the very beginning, the woman Vivian should have listened to. Rosie tackled Tessa to the ground with the force of 12 years of protective friendship. Champagne glasses shattered against the stone pathway. Women screamed, men shouted, chairs toppled as guests scrambled backward. "Call 911. Someone finally found their voice. "She's pregnant. Oh my God, she's pregnant." Vivian tried to sit up. The world spun violently. She felt wetness between her legs and prayed with everything she had that it wasn't blood, that it wasn't the end of everything she had hoped for. "Don't move, honey." An older woman knelt beside her, a guest Vivian didn't recognize. Gray hair, kind eyes, shaking hands. "Help is coming. Just breathe, in and out. Focus on my voice." Breathing seemed impossible. Each inhale brought fresh waves of pain radiating from her abdomen. She looked up at the clear September sky. Such a beautiful day for a baby shower. 72 degrees with a light breeze. Perfect weather for the celebration she had spent 3 months planning. Perfect weather for her world to end. Through the chaos of screaming guests and toppled chairs and scattered gift wrap, she saw Claudette again. Her mother-in-law hadn't moved from her position near the champagne table, still holding that crystal flute, still watching with those cold gray eyes. Their gazes met across 15 feet of manicured lawn. Claudette took a deliberate sip of champagne. Vivian understood something in that moment, something that would take her months to fully comprehend. But right now, lying in rose petals and pain, she felt the first crack in everything she believed about her life, her marriage, her family, her future. The woman who had attacked her knew Grant. That much was obvious from her words, from her rage, from the way she had screamed about the baby. And Claudette. Claudette had known too, had known and done nothing, had watched her pregnant daughter-in-law get attacked and sipped champagne like it was entertainment. The ambulance arrived in 11 minutes. It felt like 11 hours. Vivian counted the seconds, counted the breaths, counted anything she could count because counting gave her something to control when nothing else was controllable. Paramedics in blue uniforms pushed through the crowd with a stretcher. Professional voices called out medical terms she didn't understand. Hands touched her belly, her neck, her wrist. "Ma'am, can you tell me your name?" Vivian Ashford." "How far along are you?" 7 months, 29 weeks. "Any bleeding?" "I don't know. I felt wetness. I don't know." The paramedic's face stayed professionally neutral, but Vivian saw something flicker in his eyes. Concern. The kind of concern that meant bad news might be coming. Rosie appeared at the edge of the stretcher. Her designer dress was torn from tackling Tessa. Her carefully styled hair hung in tangles around her face. Grass stains covered her knees. "I'm coming with her." Rosie's voice left no room for argument. "I'm her emergency contact, her family. I'm coming." "Ma'am, we need space to work." "Then make space because I'm not leaving her." The paramedics exchanged glances, then nodded. Rosie climbed into the ambulance and took Vivian's hand. "Where's Grant?" Vivian asked. Her voice sounded strange, distant, like it belonged to someone else. Rosie's face tightened, a micro-expression that lasted less than a second. But Vivian saw it. He wasn't here yet. He was supposed to arrive at 3 for the speeches. Rosie checked her phone. It's 3:47. The ambulance doors slammed shut. Sirens wailed. The vehicle lurched forward, and Vivian felt every bump and pothole like a knife in her abdomen. She stared at the metal ceiling, counted the rivets. 14. She counted them again. 14, and again. 14. Grant wasn't at her baby shower. Grant wasn't there when a woman in white attacked her. Grant was somewhere else, while the mother of his unborn children lay bleeding in a garden surrounded by 200 witnesses. Where was he? What was so important that he missed his own wife's baby shower? "Blood pressure dropping," the paramedic announced. "We need to move faster. Radio ahead. Tell them we're coming in hot. Pregnant female, possible placental abruption. 29 weeks gestation." Vivian closed her eyes. Her hand found her belly, the swell that had grown over 7 months. The life she had been nurturing with prenatal vitamins and doctor's appointments and dreams of nurseries painted in soft yellows. "Please be okay. Please be okay. Please be okay." The prayer repeated in her mind like a heartbeat, like the heartbeat she desperately hoped was still beating inside her. The hospital was a blur of fluorescent lights and urgent voices. They wheeled her through automatic doors and down corridors that smelled like antiseptic and anxiety. Faces appeared and disappeared. Nurses in scrubs, doctors in white coats. Everyone moving fast, everyone looking serious. She was transferred to an examination room. Monitors beeped as they attached sensors to her chest and belly. An IV went into her arm. Someone asked about allergies, medical history, the name of her obstetrician. Rosie answered everything. Vivian couldn't form words anymore, could only lie there and feel and pray. "Mrs. Ashford?" A woman appeared above her, gray-streaked hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, calm brown eyes that had seen everything. "I'm Dr. Helen Cartwright. I'm going to take care of you and your baby. Can you tell me exactly where you feel pain?" "Everywhere." Vivian's voice cracked. She stomped on my belly with her heel, a stiletto heel. Dr. Cartwright's expression remained professional, but her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "We're going to do an emergency ultrasound right now. I need you to try to stay calm. Can you do that for me?" Stay calm. Her baby might be dying inside her and she needed to stay calm. Her marriage might be a lie and she needed to stay calm. Her entire world might be collapsing and she needed to stay calm. "I'll try." The ultrasound technician arrived with a portable machine. Cold gel spread across Vivian's exposed belly. The wand pressed against her skin. Dr. Cartwright watched the screen. Her eyebrows drew together. She leaned closer to the monitor, adjusted something on the machine, leaned closer still. The silence stretched. Vivian counted heartbeats. Her own. The machine's steady beeping. The distant sounds of the hospital beyond the closed door. Mrs. Ashford, Dr. Cartwright's voice had changed, become something heavier, more significant. I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. Vivian's heart stopped. Her breath stopped. Everything stopped. Is my baby dead? No. Dr. Cartwright turned the screen so Vivian could see it. Your babies are alive, all four of them. The room went completely silent except for the steady beeping of monitors. Vivian stared at the screen, at the grainy black and white image, at the shapes that looked like nothing and everything at once. Four, she whispered. Quadruplets. Dr. Cartwright pointed at the screen. Here, 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 and here. Four distinct heartbeats. Four fetuses, all alive and showing normal vital signs given the trauma. But my last appointment, 2 weeks ago, they said twins. They showed me two heartbeats. The angle of the previous ultrasound must have hidden two of them. It happens sometimes with multiples. They position themselves in ways that make accurate counting difficult. Dr. Cartwright paused. But there's no doubt now. You're carrying four babies. Vivian stared at the screen. Four tiny forms, four heartbeats pulsing in rhythm. Four lives that had been threatened by a stranger's stiletto heel. Four children she hadn't known existed until this moment. Rosie appeared at her side, took her hand, squeezed so hard it almost hurt. Four, Rosie breathed. Vivian, four babies. They're okay? Vivian asked the doctor. All of them? They're okay? They're stable right now. The heartbeats are strong. I'm not seeing any immediate signs of placental damage. Dr. Cartwright's voice became more serious. But we need to monitor you closely. The trauma from the attack, the stress on your body carrying four babies, the next 48 hours are critical. Do you understand? Vivian nodded. She understood. She understood nothing and everything at the same time. Quadruplets. She was carrying four children. Grant's four children. The billionaire Ashford heir times four. And somewhere out there, a woman in white had tried to kill them all. The door burst open. Grant Ashford rushed in, tie loosened, dark hair disheveled. His custom Italian suit was wrinkled. His usually perfect appearance was cracked. Vivian. He crossed to her bed in 3 long strides, reached for her hand. Oh God, Vivian. I came as soon as I heard. I came as fast as I could. She let him take her hand. Habit, muscle memory, the automatic response of a wife to her husband's presence. 3 years of marriage had programmed her to accept his touch without thinking. I came as soon as I could, he repeated. Traffic was impossible. There was an accident on the highway. I tried to call, but my phone died. Vivian studied his face. The face she had woken up next to for 3 years. The face she had kissed 1,000 times. The face she had believed she knew better than her own. She looked for something. She wasn't sure what. Truth maybe, or lies, or some sign that would tell her what to believe. A woman attacked me, she said slowly, at our baby shower. She stomped on my belly. I know, I heard, it's insane. Grant shook his head. His expression was perfect concern, perfect outrage. Who would do something like that? To a pregnant woman? At her own baby shower? Behind Grant, Rosie appeared in the doorway. Her torn dress was now covered by a hospital blanket someone had given her. Her hair was still tangled. Her mascara was smeared. But her eyes were sharp, fixed on Grant with an expression Vivian had never seen on her friend's face before. Suspicion, calculation, and something that looked like barely contained fury. She gave her name, Rosie said. Her voice was flat, controlled. The woman who attacked Vivian. She announced it to everyone before she was tackled. Tessa Monroe. Grant's hand twitched in Vivian's grip. A micro-movement, barely perceptible. A tremor that lasted less than half a second. But she felt it. Tessa Monroe, Rosie repeated it, slower this time. Each syllable deliberate. Ring any bells, Grant? I don't know how she got my wife's information. Grant's voice was smooth, practiced. The voice of a man who negotiated billion-dollar deals. I don't know why she would target Vivian. She's clearly mentally unstable. Some kind of stalker, maybe. We'll make sure she's prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. That's not what I asked. Rosie stepped into the room. I asked if you know her. Tessa Monroe, blonde, late 20s, Very pretty, actually, when she's not stomping on pregnant women. I meet hundreds of people every week. The name doesn't ring a bell. Doesn't ring a bell. Rosie's laugh was sharp, bitter. Interesting choice of words. Grant finally turned to look at her. Something shifted in his expression. A hardening around the eyes, a tightening of the jaw. What exactly are you implying, Rosemary? I'm not implying anything. I'm asking a direct question. Rosie crossed her arms. Do you know the woman who attacked your pregnant wife? The silence stretched. Vivian watched her husband's face, watched the war of expressions, watched him choose which version of himself to present. No, he said finally. I don't know her. But Vivian had seen something in that pause, a flicker behind his eyes. The same flicker she'd seen 3 months ago when she'd asked about the name on his phone. Tessa. He'd said it was a vendor. Something for the new hotel chain expansion. She'd believed him then, because believing was easier than knowing. 4 babies, she said quietly. The ultrasound showed 4 babies, not twins, quadruplets. Grant's expression shifted to genuine surprise, the first authentic emotion she'd seen on his face since he walked in. 4? His voice cracked slightly. That's not possible. They said twins at the last appointment. They were wrong. 2 were hidden behind the others. Vivian placed her hand on her belly. 4 heartbeats beneath her palm. 4 lives depending on her. I'm carrying your 4 children, Grant, and a woman named Tessa Monroe tried to kill them today. She watched him carefully, watched the implications process across his face. 4 children, 4 heirs, 4 reasons his wife could never be easily discarded. We'll get through this, he said, together. As a family, I'll hire the best lawyers, the best security, whatever it takes to keep you and the babies safe. Vivian didn't respond. She turned her head to stare at the ceiling, counting the tiles now instead of ambulance rivets. 18. 18 tiles between her and the fluorescent lights. She counted them 3 more times before Grant finally stopped talking and left to make phone calls. Because Grant always had phone calls to make. Even now. Even with his wife in a hospital bed and his 4 unborn children at risk. Some things never changed. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and dying flowers. Someone had sent an enormous bouquet within 2 hours of Vivian's admission. Pink and blue roses mixed together because she hadn't announced the gender yet. The card read, "Congratulations on your growing family. Warmest wishes, the Ashford Foundation Board." Not from a friend, not from family, from a board of directors, a corporation congratulating her on surviving an attack. Vivian had asked the nurse to move the flowers to the farthest corner of the room. Looking at them made her nauseous. Grant had stepped out to make phone calls. He was always making phone calls, handling business, managing crises, being the billionaire CEO that everyone expected him to be. 3 years of marriage, and Vivian had learned to accept this. Learned to be patient while he took one more call. Learned to eat dinners alone while he wrapped up a meeting. Learned to fall asleep by herself while he finished some emails. She had thought she was being a good wife, understanding, supportive, the perfect partner for a man with enormous responsibilities. Now she wondered what else she had failed to see while she was being so understanding. Rosie sat in the uncomfortable vinyl chair beside the bed. She hadn't left since bullying her way into the ambulance. Her ruined designer dress was now covered by a blue hospital blanket someone had given her. Her makeup had been wiped away, revealing the freckles she usually concealed. She looked exhausted and furious, and something else Vivian couldn't quite name. I should call your mother, Rosie said. Her voice was careful, measured. She needs to know what happened. Not yet. Vivian stared at the ceiling, still counting, still trying to find something she could control. I can't talk to her right now. I don't know what to say. You could say the truth, that a crazy woman attacked you at your baby shower. And then she'd ask why. And I'd have to admit I don't know. Vivian paused. Or I'd have to admit what I suspect. Rosie was quiet for a long moment. Outside the door, hospital sounds continued. Pages over the intercom, wheels rolling on linoleum, muffled conversations about medications and vital signs. The woman who attacked you, Rosie finally said. Grant knew her. I know. You saw his face when I said her name? I saw. Vivian closed her eyes. 3 months ago, her name came up on his phone, Tessa. He was in the shower and his phone buzzed on the nightstand. I saw the name. And you didn't say anything? I asked him about it, casually, like it didn't matter. He said she was a vendor, some woman helping with the hotel chain expansion in Miami. Vivian's voice was flat. He had an explanation. It was plausible, so I believed it. Because believing was easier than knowing. Yes. Rosie stood up abruptly, crossed to the window, stared out at the hospital parking lot below. I should have said something, she said, years ago, when you two first started dating. Said what? That I didn't trust him, that something about him felt wrong, that men like Grant Ashford don't fall in love with women like us without a reason. Vivian turned to look at her friend. Women like us? Normal women. Women without trust funds and family connections and social pedigrees. Rosie's laugh was bitter. When you told me you were dating him, I did research, dug into his past, his previous relationships. You never told me that, because I didn't find anything concrete, just rumors, whispers, the kind of gossip that surrounds every rich man. Rosie turned from the window. But I should have warned you anyway. I should have trusted my instincts. Would I have listened? Probably not. You were so happy, so in love. Rosie sat back down, took Vivian's hand. And I wanted you to be happy. I wanted to believe he was different. The door opened. A police officer entered, followed by a woman in plain clothes with a badge on her verdict. Mrs. Ashford? The woman didn't smile, didn't soften her edges. I'm Detective Rita Saunders. I need to ask you some questions about what happened today. Detective Saunders was in her early 40s. Short brown hair with streaks of gray she didn't bother to hide. No makeup, no jewelry except for a simple wedding band. She looked like a woman who had seen the worst of humanity and learned not to be surprised by it. Is the woman who attacked me in custody? Vivian asked. She is. She's been charged with assault with intent to cause bodily harm to an unborn child. Detective Saunders pulled out a small notebook. She's claiming self-defense. Vivian laughed. The sound surprised her, hollow and sharp. Self-defense? I was 7 months pregnant with my hands full of gift bags. I couldn't have defended myself against a strong breeze. She's also claiming you threw the first punch, that you've been harassing her for months, calling her, showing up at her apartment, threatening to destroy her life. That's insane. I didn't know she existed until today. She claims you knew about her relationship with your husband, that you've been systematically trying to ruin her. The room went silent. Vivian felt Rosie's grip tighten on her hand. Her relationship with my husband, Vivian repeated. The words felt strange in her mouth. Foreign. That's what she's saying. Detective Saunders' voice was neutral, professional. She claims your husband promised to leave you, that the pregnancy complicated things, that you discovered the affair and have been tormenting her ever since. I discovered the affair today when she stomped on my pregnant belly. You had no idea before that? Vivian thought about the phone, the name Tessa, the smooth explanation from Grant, the choice to believe because believing was easier. I had suspicions, she said. Nothing concrete, nothing confirmed. But you suspected. Wives always suspect. Vivian's voice was tired. We just learned to convince ourselves we're being paranoid. Detective Saunders wrote something in her notebook, then looked up with those sharp, assessing eyes. Ma'am, we have this on 17 cameras. Every guest at your party was filming something. Phones everywhere. The woman's claims don't match the video evidence. So you know she's lying about the self-defense. What I know is that she attacked you unprovoked at your own baby shower in front of 200 witnesses. The detective paused. What I'm trying to understand is why. I can't help you with that. I don't know why. But you might be able to guess. Vivian looked at Rosie. Her friend's face was carefully neutral. Waiting. No, Vivian said. I can't guess. You'll have to ask her. Detective Saunders studied her for a long moment, then closed her notebook. Your husband's attorneys have already been in contact with our department. They're trying to get the woman released quietly. Something about concerns over media attention and the Ashford family reputation. What? Apparently, there are parties who would prefer this whole situation to go away without public scrutiny. Vivian felt something cold settle in her chest. Grant was trying to get Tessa released, trying to make this disappear, not to protect Vivian from publicity, not to shield her from stress, but to silence Tessa before she could say anything else. I want to press charges, Vivian said, full charges, whatever is possible under the law. Even if it means publicity, media attention, your family's private matters becoming public? Even then, Detective Saunders nodded slowly. Something that might have been respect flickered across her professional face. Good, she said, because I've been doing this job for 18 years. I've seen a lot of domestic situations, a lot of affairs gone wrong. She paused. But I've never seen someone attack a pregnant woman at her own baby shower for no reason. There's always a reason. And in my experience, the reason usually involves the husband. After the detective left, Rosie moved to sit on the edge of the hospital bed. She knows, Rosie said quietly. That cop knows exactly what's going on. So do I now. What are you going to do? Vivian placed her hand on her belly. 4 heartbeats, still there, still fighting, just like their mother. I'm going to find out the truth, all of it, before I do anything else. And then I'm going to make sure Grant Ashford pays for every single lie he's ever told me. The door opened again. This time it wasn't police, it was Claudette Ashford. Grant's mother swept into the room like she owned it, which Vivian realized she probably did. The Ashfords had donated millions to this hospital over the decades. There was likely an entire wing with their name on it somewhere. Claudette was 62 years old but looked 50. Perfect silver hair in a perfect chignon, perfect navy suit, perfect pearls around a neck that had never known a day of physical labor. Vivian, she didn't sit, didn't soften, didn't pretend to be a concerned mother-in-law rushing to her daughter-in-law's bedside. We need to discuss this privately. Discuss what? This unfortunate incident. A woman tried to kill my babies. That's not an incident. That's attempted murder. Let's not be dramatic. Claudette's voice was cool, patient, the voice of a woman who had spent decades managing inconvenient situations. She barely touched you. You fell. You're fine. The babies are fine. No permanent harm was done. She stomped on my pregnant belly with a stiletto heel. And yet here you are, talking, breathing, not in surgery. Claudette glanced at Rosie. Could you give us a moment? Family matters. Rosie didn't move. I am family. You're a friend from college. A nice girl, I'm sure, but not family. Claudette's smile was thin. Please, this will only take a moment. Rosie looked at Vivian, waiting for a signal. Stay, Vivian said. Anything Claudette has to say can be said in front of you. Something flickered in Claudette's perfect expression. Annoyance, quickly suppressed. Very well. She moved to stand at the foot of the bed. Listen to me carefully, Vivian. I've spoken with our attorneys. We can make this entire situation disappear. The charges dropped. The woman given psychiatric treatment rather than prison. Everything handled quietly and discreetly. Why would I want that? Because the alternative is a circus, media attention, reporters digging into our family's private matters, speculation and gossip and scandal. Our family's private matters. Vivian studied her mother-in-law's face. You mean Grant's private matters? I mean all of our matters, including yours. Claudette's eyes hardened. You're an Ashford now. That comes with responsibilities, duties, ways of handling problems that protect the family name. The woman who attacked me knew Grant. She said he promised to leave me. She's a disturbed individual. Nothing she says can be trusted. But you knew. Vivian pushed herself up slightly against the pillows. You were standing right there when she arrived, when she started screaming. You didn't look surprised. You didn't look confused. You looked like you were waiting to see what would happen. Claudette's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted. A calculation, an assessment. I don't know what you think you saw. I saw you drink champagne while your daughter-in-law was being attacked. I saw you stand there and watch. I saw you do nothing. The room fell silent. Outside, hospital sounds continued. Pages over the intercom, wheels on linoleum, the steady beeping of Vivian's monitors. Let me explain something to you. Claudette's voice was soft now, almost gentle, the way someone might explain a simple concept to a slow child. You are a nice girl from Ohio. Your father was an accountant. Your mother was a teacher. You went to a state school on scholarships and worked your way into a marketing position at a company where you happened to meet my son. I know my own background. Do you? Do you understand what it means? Claudette took a step closer. You married above your station, Vivian. Far above. You entered a world with rules you don't understand, expectations you can't meet. And yes, compromises you must accept. Compromises like accepting my husband's mistress? Compromises like understanding that powerful men have powerful appetites. That discretion is more important than emotion. That family legacy matters more than personal feelings. Vivian stared at her mother-in-law. At this woman she had tried so hard to please for 3 years. All those dinners she had attended with a smile. All those charity events where she had said the right things. All those moments she had swallowed her opinions and nodded along. She had wanted Claudette's approval so desperately, had believed that if she just tried hard enough, she could earn a place in this family. Now she saw the truth. She would never be accepted, never be an equal. She was a temporary inconvenience to be managed, an outsider who had managed to get pregnant and complicate things. Get out, Vivian said. Claudette blinked. Excuse me? Get out of my room, now. I don't think you understand what you're doing. I understand perfectly. Vivian kept her voice calm, steady, even as her heart pounded and her hands trembled beneath the blanket. I understand that you knew about Tessa, that you've always known, that you watched me get attacked and did nothing because you were hoping she would succeed. That's absurd. Is it? What was the plan? Have her scare me, make me miscarry, give Grant an excuse to end the marriage and go back to his mistress? Claudette's face went completely still, the mask of control firmly in place. You're hysterical. The trauma has affected your thinking. My thinking has never been clearer. Vivian reached beneath her blanket, pulled out her phone, showed the screen to her mother-in-law. I've been recording this entire conversation. Every word. For the first time, Claudette looked uncertain. You can't do that. It's illegal. Not in this state. Single-party consent. Vivian smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. I've learned a lot about legal matters since marrying into this family. All those dinners with your attorneys taught me something after all. Claudette stood very still, processing, calculating. What do you want? She finally asked. Right now, I want you to leave. We can discuss the rest later. Claudette gathered herself, straightened her already perfect blazer, walked to the door with the posture of a queen who had merely chosen to retreat for strategic purposes. You're making a mistake, she said without turning around. A serious mistake. This family has resources you can't imagine, connections you don't understand. We can make your life very difficult. Maybe, but you just admitted on recording that you knew about Tessa, that you expect me to accept my husband's infidelity, that this family considers me beneath them. Vivian paused. I don't think I'm the one who should be worried. Claudette opened the door, paused. Remember this conversation, she said, when everything falls apart. Remember that I gave you a chance to handle this quietly. The door closed behind her. Vivian let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Rosie stared at her with wide eyes. You recorded that? I started recording the moment she walked in. You wonderful, terrifying genius. Rosie grabbed her hand. When did you learn to be this smart? Vivian looked at her phone, at the recording still running, at the evidence she had just gathered against the most powerful family in New York. About 30 seconds after I hit the ground in that garden, she said, when I realized that no one was going to save me but myself. The messages arrived at 3:17 in the morning. Vivian had been drifting in and out of restless sleep, dreams she couldn't remember, but that left her heart racing and her skin damp. The hospital room was dark except for the glow of monitors, the soft beeping, the distant sounds of nighttime hospital rhythms. Something made her reach for her phone, some instinct, some whisper from a universe that wanted her to know the truth. 73 text messages from an unknown number. Her finger hovered over the notification. Part of her wanted to ignore it, to put the phone down and go back to sleep, to stay in the comfortable ignorance she had lived in for 3 years. But she had promised herself in that garden, promised her 4 babies, no more pretending, no more convenient blindness. She opened the messages. The first was a photo, Grant and a blonde woman at a restaurant. Nice restaurant, white tablecloths, candles, his hand covering hers across the table. The second photo showed them on a beach, tropical, palm trees and turquoise water, his arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder. The third photo was more intimate, a hotel room, his tie on the floor, her dress unzipped in the back, both of them blurred with movement. Vivian scrolled through all 73 images. Her hands were steady, her breath was even. She noted this with distant surprise. Each photo had a date stamped in the corner, metadata that couldn't be faked. March 15th, 2 years ago. Vivian remembered that date. Grant had been on a business trip to Miami. She had stayed home because she was fighting a cold. July 4th, 2 years ago, Independence Day. Grant had told her he couldn't attend her family's barbecue because of an investor meeting in Singapore. He'd been apologetic, sent flowers. October 22nd, 2 years ago, her birthday. Grant had made dinner reservations at her favorite restaurant. He'd shown up 45 minutes late. Traffic, he said. His office was just across town. She hadn't questioned it. November 17th, 2 years ago, their wedding day. Vivian stared at this photo for a long time. Grant and Tessa in a hotel room. The timestamp said 6:45 in the evening. The ceremony had been at 4. The reception started at 5. Grant had disappeared for 40 minutes during the reception. She remembered because Rosie had made a joke about grooms getting cold feet, but he'd come back smiling, dancing. The perfect new husband. 40 minutes. Enough time to slip away to a hotel room 2 miles from the venue. Enough time to see his mistress on his wedding day. The final message in the thread wasn't a photo, it was text. Now you know, now everyone will know, you should have let him go when you had the chance, but you wouldn't. So I had to make you see. I sent these 30 minutes ago. By the time you read this, you'll understand. He was never yours, he was always mine. Sent at 2:47, 30 minutes before the attack. Tessa hadn't snapped in a moment of passion. She had planned this, methodically, deliberately. She had sent the evidence first. Then she had come to the baby shower knowing exactly what she was going to do. Vivian scrolled back through the photos, counted them, examined each one. Their first anniversary trip to Paris. Grant had spent an entire afternoon at a business meeting with French investors. Vivian had wandered the Louvre alone. The photo from that day showed Tessa in a Paris hotel room, rose petals on the bed, a bottle of champagne, Grant's initials monogrammed on a robe hanging in the background. Every good memory she had was now contaminated. The honeymoon sunrise she had watched alone because Grant was on a call with Tokyo. He had been on a video call with Tessa. The Christmas morning he had given her diamond earrings and then stepped out to call his mother. He had been calling his mistress. The afternoon she had told him she was pregnant. He had been so happy, so emotional. They had made love and fallen asleep in each other's arms, and then he had left at midnight to handle a work emergency. The emergency was Tessa. You can't unknow what you know. You can only decide what to do with it. Vivian sat in the dark hospital room. 4 heartbeats pulsed inside her. The monitors beeped steadily. The night stretched on around her like an endless ocean. She didn't cry. She was surprised to realize she didn't want to. The tears would come later, she knew. This kind of devastation demanded tears eventually. But right now she felt something else. Something cold and clear and very, very sharp. She had been a fool. For 3 years she had ignored every sign, every late night, every vague excuse, every moment that didn't quite add up. She had chosen comfort over truth, security over reality, and her husband had exploited that choice every single day. The door opened softly. Rosie slipped in, still wearing the ruined dress under a hospital blanket. She had spent the night in the waiting room, refusing to leave, refusing to let Vivian face this alone. You're awake. Rosie crossed to the bed. I saw the light from your phone. Vivian held up the device. 73 messages, photos, going back more than 2 years. Rosie took the phone, scrolled through the images in silence. Her face went through a journey of expressions: shock, horror, rage, and finally something that looked like grief. 2 years, she said. He was seeing her before you even got engaged. She was there first. The whole time I thought I was his girlfriend, his fiancée, his wife. Vivian's voice was flat, factual. I was the other woman. I just didn't know it. No, Rosie's voice was fierce. You were his wife. You are his wife. You are carrying his children. She was a secret, a lie, a side piece he kept in the shadows. She paused. There's a difference, Vivian. An important difference. Is there? Yes, because you had a marriage, a real relationship, even if it was built on his lies. She had scraps, stolen moments, hotel rooms, and secret messages. Rosie sat on the edge of the bed. She had to attack a pregnant woman at a baby shower just to be seen, just to be acknowledged. That's not a relationship. That's an obsession. Vivian considered this. It didn't make her feel better, but it shifted something in her perspective. She sent these 30 minutes before the attack. She said, she wanted me to know. Before she hurt me, she wanted me to see. Why? I don't know. Maybe she wanted me to understand what I was losing. Maybe she wanted the satisfaction of knowing I knew. Vivian paused. Or maybe she wanted me to fight back, to give her a reason. Self-defense. Exactly. If I attacked her first, she could claim she was just defending herself. Even with witnesses, even with cameras, there would be doubt. But you didn't attack her. No, I was too shocked, too slow. Vivian touched her belly. I was thinking about the babies, about protecting them. I didn't even realize what was happening until she was all ready. She couldn't finish the sentence. The memory was still too fresh, the heel coming down, the pain exploding through her body, the rose petals and the screaming and the endless moments on the ground. What are you going to do? Rosie asked. I don't know yet, but I know I need more information. These photos prove the affair, but I need to know how deep this goes, how long, how much money, everything. You have an attorney, that guy you hired 2 months ago. Bennett? Yes. Vivian reached for her hospital phone. I'm going to call him as soon as it's a reasonable hour. Vivian, it's 3:30 in the morning. I know, I'll wait. She paused. But while I'm waiting, I'm going to do something I should have done years ago. What? Vivian picked up her personal phone, opened the photo gallery. 3 years of memories, 3 years of smiles and posed pictures and carefully curated happiness. I'm going to stop lying to myself. She deleted the first photo, their engagement announcement, his arm around her, her ring catching the light, both of them beaming at the camera. She deleted the next one, their first Christmas as a married couple, the tree behind them, the matching pajamas she had thought were adorable. She deleted the next, and the next, and the next. 312 pictures, 3 years of documented lies. By the time the sun began to lighten the sky outside her window, they were all gone. Bennett Shaw arrived at the hospital at 7:45 in the morning. Vivian had hired him 2 months ago, quietly, secretly. When the doubts had become impossible to ignore, but she wasn't ready to act on them, she had told herself it was just a precaution, just smart planning, the way any reasonable person would prepare for possibilities they hoped would never come true. Now she was grateful for her own paranoia. Bennett was 45 years old, silver hair at the temples, expensive suits that somehow managed to look rumpled. The appearance of a friendly uncle who happened to have graduated top of his class from Harvard Law. He wasn't friendly, not really. He was calculating, cautious, and absolutely ruthless when necessary. The best divorce attorney in New York, according to Rosie's research. Mrs. Ashford. He closed the hospital room door behind him. I came as soon as I received your message. Thank you for coming so early. Given the circumstances, I would have come at midnight if you'd called. He pulled a chair close to the bed. I've been following the news. The attack is everywhere. Social media, local news. It's trending on multiple platforms. Is that good or bad? It depends on how we use it. Bennett opened his briefcase, pulled out a folder thick with documents. You asked me 2 months ago to look into your husband's finances. I told you it would take time. that the Ashford family has layers of protection around their assets. You found something. I found everything. He laid the folder on her lap. A second bank account. Opened 14 months ago. $12 million have passed through it since then. Vivian stared at the number. 12 million. More money than she could visualize. More money than her parents would earn in 10 lifetimes combined. Monthly transfers to an account in Tessa Monroe's name, Bennett continued. $50,000 every month for the past 14 months. $50,000 a month. That's just the cash allowance. He flipped to another page. There's also an apartment. Upper East Side, 2 bedrooms. Purchased 6 months after your wedding. Title in her name. Another page. A car, BM latest model, cash purchase. Her name. Another page. Jewelry, multiple purchases from high-end boutiques over the past 2 years. All billed to the secondary account. Vivian felt the weight of each revelation. Not just an affair, a parallel life, a shadow existence funded entirely by her husband's hidden money. The account, she said. Where did the 12 million come from? From your husband's personal holdings, not company money, his private investments. He liquidated several positions over the past year to fund it. So he wasn't stealing from the company. No, which makes it harder to pursue through business channels. Bennett paused. But it does establish a pattern of deception, of maintaining a separate financial life without your knowledge or consent. There's more, isn't there? Bennett's expression shifted, became more careful. There's more, he confirmed. Medical bills, over the past 18 months, fertility treatments. Vivian's hand went instinctively to her belly. Fertility treatments? Tessa Monroe has been trying to get pregnant. 3 attempts, 3 rounds of IVF. He pulled out another document. All failed, all paid for by your husband. The room seemed to shrink around her. The monitors beeped. The morning light grew stronger outside the window. 4 babies, 4 heartbeats inside her. 4 children she hadn't been trying to conceive. They had happened naturally. A miracle of biology that she and Grant had celebrated with joy. But Tessa had been trying for 18 months, spending Grant's money on doctors and procedures and hormone treatments. Desperate to have what Vivian had accomplished without effort. She attacked me because I got pregnant, Vivian said slowly. Because I have what she couldn't have. That's my assessment. Bennett closed the folder. This wasn't a crime of passion, Mrs. Ashford. This was 18 months of frustration and jealousy exploding in a moment of violent rage. But she planned it. She sent me photos first. She came prepared, which suggests premeditation. The prosecution will use that. He paused. And so will we in the divorce proceedings. The prenup. Vivian had been thinking about this all night. What does this mean for my prenup? I've reviewed it thoroughly. Your husband's attorneys drafted it to protect Ashford assets. Standard language for wealthy families. If you divorce without cause, you receive $2 million regardless of his net worth. $2 million. From a man worth billions. But there's a clause. Page 47. It's small, easy to miss. Bennett's eyes gleamed. A clause about infidelity. What does it say? If infidelity by either party is proven with documented evidence, the prenup becomes void. Standard in wealthy family marriages. A protection against exactly this situation. And we have documented evidence. 73 photographs with timestamps. Bennett smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the smile of a predator who had spotted vulnerable prey. Financial records showing sustained deception over multiple years. An apartment and a car and jewelry purchased for a mistress. Fertility treatments funded by your husband. He paused. And 17 cameras at a baby shower capturing his mistress attacking his pregnant wife. Vivian looked at the folder in her lap. At the documents that represented her husband's betrayal, reduced to paper and numbers. At proof that every instinct she had ignored, every doubt she had swallowed, had been correct. What are my options, she asked. Right now, rest, recover, protect yourself and those babies. Bennett began gathering the documents. Let me handle the preliminary work. Subpoenas for additional financial records. Depositions scheduled. The groundwork for what comes next. What comes next? That depends on you. You can accept a settlement, walk away quietly, Start over somewhere else. He paused. Or you can fight. Use everything we have. Destroy the narrative the Ashfords are trying to build. What narrative? That you're a gold digger, that you knew about Tessa, that you got pregnant deliberately to secure your position. Bennett's voice was matter-of-fact, describing the strategies he knew the other side would use. Claudette has already started making calls. I have contacts who've heard the whispers. She thinks she can make people believe I'm the villain. She's done it before with Grant's first wife. Vivian looked up sharply. Grant was married before? Briefly, 8 years ago, to a woman named Grace Harlow. Bennett pulled out another document. The marriage lasted 2 years, produced one child, a daughter named Joanna. Joanna, Vivian knew that name, had met the little girl several times. Grant's daughter from his previous relationship, as he'd always called it. She'd never been told there was a marriage. Grace Harlow signed a non-disclosure agreement as part of her divorce settlement. She received $2 million, full custody of her daughter, and a lifetime gag order preventing her from ever discussing the Ashford family publicly. What happened? Why did they divorce? I haven't been able to determine that. The NDA is comprehensive, but I have sources who suggest the circumstances were similar to yours. He was cheating on her too. Possibly, or worse. Bennett stood, moved to the window. The Ashford family has a pattern, Mrs. Ashford. A way of handling inconvenient women. They isolate. They discredit. They pay for silence. And he turned to face her. They've done it for 3 generations. You are not the first. You won't be the last. Vivian stared at him. At this man she had hired on a whisper of suspicion. At the doorway he was opening into her husband's history. Why are you telling me this? She asked. This is beyond the scope of a normal divorce attorney. Because I've spent 20 years watching the Ashfords destroy people. Bennett's voice was hard. My sister was one of them. Not a wife, an employee. She discovered something she shouldn't have. They buried her career, blacklisted her from every firm in New York. She moved to Oregon and never recovered. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be smart. Be ruthless. Be everything they don't expect you to be. He picked up his briefcase. I'll be in touch when I have more. In the meantime, don't sign anything, don't agree to anything, and don't trust anyone with the Ashford name. After he left, Vivian sat alone with the folder of evidence in the morning light and the steady beeping of monitors. 4 heartbeats, 4 children who would inherit the Ashford name unless she changed their story. She opened the folder again, began reading every document, every receipt, every transfer, $12 million, 3 fertility attempts, 2 years of lies. The truth was worse than she had imagined, and she suspected it was only the beginning. Malcolm Webb arrived at the hospital unannounced on the 4th day. Vivian recognized him immediately. Grant's business partner for 15 years. Silent majority shareholder in Ashford Industries. The steady hand behind the empire while Grant played the charismatic public face. He was 62 years old, silver hair, gentle eyes that had always seemed out of place in the cutthroat world of corporate power. He had been kind to Vivian at countless Ashford events, the only person in Grant's circle who asked about her life instead of just her husband's accomplishments. She had always wondered why he was different. Now she suspected she was about to find out. Mrs. Ashford? He stood in the doorway, conservative suit, no tie, looking more like a concerned uncle than a billion-dollar executive. May I come in? That depends. Vivian pushed herself up against the pillows. 4 days of bed rest had made her restless. Are you here on my husband's behalf? I'm not here as Grant's friend. Malcolm stepped inside, closed the door behind him. I'm here because what he's done to you is wrong, and because I have information you need. Vivian studied him carefully, looking for the angle, looking for the trap. 4 days of Ashford family drama had taught her that kindness always came with strings attached. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't, not completely. Malcolm sat in the visitor's chair. His movements were slow, deliberate, the movements of a man who wanted to appear non-threatening. I have my own interests in this situation. Grant has been making business decisions I disagree with, risky investments, questionable partnerships. The company is in a more precarious position than the public knows. So you want leverage against him. I want accountability for the company, for the people who work there. He paused. And for the women Grant has heard over the years. Women. Plural. You're not the first, Mrs. Ashford. You know that by now. Vivian thought of the folder Bennett had given her. The mention of Grace Harlow. The NDA that kept her silent. Tell me about Grace, she said. Malcolm leaned back in his chair. His eyes went distant, focused on memories. I met Grace Harlow when she was 23. She was working as an assistant at one of our subsidiary companies. Bright, ambitious, beautiful. He paused. Grant noticed her at a corporate retreat. 6 months later, they were engaged. What happened? The same thing that always happens with Grant. He charmed her, married her, and then immediately began looking for his next conquest. Malcolm's voice was bitter. The affairs started before the honeymoon ended. Grace tried to ignore them, tried to be the perfect wife, tried to give him a child, thinking that would change things. Joanna. Yes, Joanna was born 2 years into the marriage, and for a few months things seemed better. Grant doted on his daughter, attended family events, played the role of devoted father. What changed? Grace found evidence, credit card receipts from hotels, text messages, photographs. Malcolm met Vivian's eyes. Sound familiar? Too familiar. She confronted him, demanded he end the affairs, threatened to go public. Malcolm shook his head slowly. That was her mistake. She underestimated Claudette. What did Claudette do? She destroyed Grace's reputation before Grace could destroy Grant's. Malcolm's voice was flat, reciting facts. Rumors about Grace's mental stability spread through every social circle in New York. Stories about paranoid delusions, about obsessive jealousy, about unstable behavior that made her unfit for Ashford society. None of it was true. Of course not, but it didn't matter. By the time the divorce proceedings started, Grace had been completely isolated. Her friends had stopped calling. Her professional contacts wouldn't return messages. Even her own family had started to wonder if the rumors might be true. Vivian felt a chill run down her spine. The same playbook, the same strategies, applied to her predecessor with ruthless efficiency. She took the settlement, she said, the $2 million, the NDA. She didn't have a choice. Fight and lose everything, including her daughter, or accept their terms and start over somewhere else. Malcolm leaned forward. She chose her daughter. Most mothers would. But I have evidence, photographs, financial records, 17 cameras at a baby shower. You have more than Grace ever did, Malcolm agreed. But the Ashfords have had 4 years to prepare for the next Grace, to build better defenses, to anticipate the weapons that might be used against them. So what do? You find the weapon they haven't anticipated. Malcolm reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a small USB drive. This is a copy of Grant's company email for the past 3 years. Communications with Tessa, with Claudette, with attorneys discussing strategies for various situations. Vivian stared at the drive. How did you get this? I'm a majority shareholder. I have access to company records for oversight purposes. His smile was thin. What I do with that access is my own business. This could be considered theft. Only if someone can prove where you got it, which they won't be able to do. Vivian took the drive, small and black, innocuous, containing potentially the keys to her freedom. Why are you doing this? She asked. You've been Grant's partner for 15 years, his friend, his business ally. I was his father's partner first. Malcolm stood, moved to the window. Douglas Ashford, the previous patriarch. I watched him do the same things Grant does now. The affairs, the leases, the destruction of anyone who threatened the family image. What happened to Douglas? He died, heart attack, 8 years ago. Malcolm's voice carried no grief. I had hoped Grant would be different, that the next generation might learn from the previous one's mistakes. He turned to face her. I was wrong. So this is revenge, against the whole family. This is justice delayed by 30 years, but finally possible because of you. He moved toward the door. Use that drive carefully, Mrs. Ashford. The information on it is powerful, but power without strategy is just noise. He paused with his hand on the doorknob. One more thing. The prenup you signed, the infidelity clause. I know about it. Do you know it was Claudette's idea? Malcolm smiled at her surprise. She insisted on it 30 years ago for Douglas's prenup with her, and for every Ashford prenup since. Why would she insist on something that could void the protection? Because she believed no Ashford wife would ever have the courage to use it, that they would be too intimidated, too isolated, too broken. He opened the door. Prove her wrong. After he left, Vivian sat with the USB drive in her hand. Such a small object, such enormous implications. She thought about Grace Harlow, about the woman who had faced the same situation 8 years ago and lost, about the NDA that kept her silent and the settlement that let her escape. Grace had chosen survival, had protected her daughter at the cost of her own voice. Vivian understood that choice, would probably make the same choice if it came to that. But she wasn't there yet. She still had options, still had allies, still had 4 heartbeats giving her strength. She plugged the USB drive into her hospital laptop, began reading. The email started 3 years ago, right around the time Grant had started dating Vivian. Tessa is becoming difficult. She wants more time, more attention, more promises. Handle her. Increase the monthly amount if necessary. She can't become a problem during the courtship phase. The new woman seems suitable. Good background, attractive, properly deferential. She'll accept the arrangement once she's invested. Mother approves. She thinks this one will last longer than Grace. Less spine. Less spine? Vivian read that phrase again. Less spine. That was their assessment of her, the quality that made her suitable for Ashford marriage. Something hot and fierce rose in her chest. Not tears, not grief, anger. They had chosen her because they thought she was weak, because they thought she would accept whatever they gave her and be grateful, because they thought she was just another replaceable woman to be managed and controlled. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The 5th night was the hardest. Vivian had been moved to a private recovery suite, still in the hospital, still being monitored. But the immediate danger had passed. The babies were stable, her body was healing, her mind was another matter. Dr. Cartwright had explained it carefully. The trauma of the attack combined with the stress of discovery, combined with the hormones of pregnancy, a perfect storm of emotional overwhelm. Some women experience a delayed reaction, the doctor had said. Everything catches up at once. It's normal. It's healthy even. Your brain is processing what happened. Normal, healthy, processing. Vivian didn't feel normal or healthy. She felt like she was drowning. It happened at 2:37 in the morning. She knew the exact time because she had been staring at the clock, watching the minutes crawl by, unable to sleep, unable to think, unable to stop the carousel of images spinning through her mind. Grant's smile when they met at the charity gala. Tessa's face as she screamed at the baby shower. Claudette's champagne glass glinting in the afternoon sun. The hotel room photos, the beach photos, the wedding day photos. $2 million, $12 million, $50,000 a month. The prenup, the NDA, the pattern of destruction stretching back decades. Grace Harlow, a woman she had never met, a predecessor in suffering she was only now beginning to understand. And through it all, 4 heartbeats, 4 lives growing inside her, 4 reasons to keep breathing when breathing felt impossible. The tears started without warning. One moment she was staring at the ceiling, counting tiles like she always did. The next she was sobbing. Deep, wrenching sighs that seemed to come from somewhere below her stomach, below her bones, from some primal place that had been holding everything in. She cried for herself, for the woman she had been before this week, the woman who believed in love and marriage and happy endings. That woman was dead now, killed in a garden of rose petals. She cried for her babies, 4 innocent lives who would enter a world of complications and custody battles and family drama. They hadn't asked for any of this. They were just trying to grow, to develop, to become. She cried for Grace Harlow, for the silence she had been forced into, for the daughter she had protected at the cost of her own voice. She cried for all the women she didn't know, all the others who had crossed the Ashford family and been destroyed, all the secrets buried under NDAs and settlements and threats. And she cried for herself again, for the 3 years she had wasted, for the love she had given to a man who was incapable of receiving it, for the future she had imagined that would never exist. The sobs went on until her body ached, until her throat was raw, until she had nothing left to give. Then she lay in the darkness, empty and exhausted, and waited for something to fill the void. Rosie found her at 4:15. Her friend had been sleeping in the waiting room, as she had every night since the attack. Somehow she always knew when Vivian needed her. "I heard you," Rosie said softly. She climbed onto the hospital bed without asking, wrapped her arms around Vivian from behind, held her like a child. "I couldn't stop it," Vivian whispered. "I tried. I couldn't stop." "You're not supposed to stop it. You're supposed to let it happen. It hurts." "I know." Rosie's voice was steady, grounding. "I know it hurts. That's how you know you're still alive." Bang! They lay together in the darkness. The monitors beeped. The hospital hummed with its nighttime rhythms. "I was so stupid," Vivian finally said. 3 years. The signs were everywhere. I just didn't want to see them." "That's not stupidity. That's hope. That's love. Hope and love based on lies. The feelings were real on your side. That counts for something." Rosie pulled her closer. "He lied to you. He manipulated you. He exploited your trust. That's not your failure. That's his. I should have listened to you back at the beginning when you said something felt wrong. Maybe, or maybe you needed to learn this lesson yourself. Maybe the woman you're becoming couldn't exist without the woman you were." Vivian considered this, the philosophy of transformation, the alchemy of pain into strength. "What if I'm not strong enough?" she asked. 4 babies, alone, against the Ashford family, their money, their power, their lawyers. "You're not alone." Rosie's voice was fierce. "You have me, you have Bennett, you have whoever else we find along the way, and you have yourself." She paused. "The woman who recorded Claudette's threats, the woman who hired an attorney when she suspected something wrong, the woman who demanded her phone back from the nurse so she could document everything. That woman was operating on instinct, not strategy. Strategy is just instinct with a plan, and you have a plan now, don't you?" Vivian thought about the USB drive, the emails, the evidence she had been gathering. "I have the beginning of a plan," she admitted. "Then that's enough for now. The rest will come." The sun began to rise outside the window. Golden light crept across the floor, inch by inch, like hope advancing slowly but unstoppably. "I used to apologize for existing," Vivian said. "In that family, in that world. Every opinion I had, I minimized. Every idea I had, I second-guessed. Every time Claudette made me feel small, I thanked her for the feedback. And now? Now I'm done apologizing." Vivian placed her hand on her belly. 4 kicks answered in rapid succession, as if her babies were agreeing. "I'm going to fight for these children. Fight for myself, and if the Ashfords think they can crush me like they crushed everyone else, they're about to learn they were wrong." "There she is," Rosie smiled against Vivian's shoulder. "There's the woman I know, the woman you have always been underneath. She was buried pretty deep. The best parts of us usually are, until something cracks us open and lets them out." They watched the sunrise together, the sky shifting from black to gray to pink to gold. A new day beginning, a new chapter starting. Vivian didn't know exactly what came next, didn't have all the answers, didn't have a complete plan, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was one, being the woman the Ashfords had chosen because she had less spine. She was about to show them exactly how much spine she had. 6 weeks passed like 6 months. Dr. Cartwright had prescribed complete bed rest. No stress, no activity, no anything that might endanger the 4 lives growing inside her. "You're carrying a small army," the doctor had said. "Your body is working beyond its natural capacity. Every ounce of energy needs to go to those babies." So Vivian rested, in a small beach cottage on the Jersey shore that Rosie's mother owned. 3 bedrooms, salt air, the sound of waves through open windows. It was nothing like the Ashford mansion. Nothing like the penthouse she had shared with Grant. Nothing like any of the luxurious spaces she had learned to navigate over 3 years. It was perfect. Rosie moved in permanently, took over the 2nd bedroom, handled the outside world so Vivian could focus on growing 4 babies. Bennett called every other day with updates. The divorce proceedings were progressing. The criminal case against Tessa was building. The media attention was both a blessing and a curse. They can't spin this into your fault, Bennett explained. 17 cameras, 200 witnesses. The attack is documented from every angle. Public sympathy is entirely on your side. What about the Ashford spin machine? They're trying. Claudette has people planting stories about your background, your family, your supposed gold-digging motivations. He paused. It's not working. The attack footage drowns everything else out. And Grant? He stayed out of the public eye, no statements, no interviews. His attorneys have advised him to keep quiet until the dust settles. Smart. Maybe, or maybe he's just hiding. The board of directors is asking questions about his judgment, about his personal life affecting the company. His position isn't as secure as he thinks. The days fell into a rhythm. Wake up, eat, rest, read, think, sleep, repeat. Vivian started a journal, not for the court case, not for evidence, for her children. I want you to know who I was before you were born, she wrote. I want you to understand why I made the choices I made. I want you to learn from my mistakes without repeating them. She wrote about meeting Grant, about the fairy tale she had believed in, about the warning signs she had ignored. She wrote about Tessa, about the attack, about the moment everything shattered. She wrote about Claudette, about the family she had tried so hard to please, about the approval she had craved and never received. And she wrote about herself, about the woman she had been, about the woman she was becoming. Your grandmother will probably tell you I was a gold digger, that I trapped your father with pregnancy, that I destroyed the family name for my own gain. Here is the truth. I loved your father. I believed in our marriage. I wanted nothing more than to build a life with him. He was the one who lied. He was the one who betrayed. He was the one who maintained a secret life while pretending to love me. I am not perfect. I made mistakes. I chose comfort over truth. I ignored what I didn't want to see. But I am not the villain of this story, and neither are you. On the 5th week, an unexpected visitor arrived. Grace Harlow stood on the cottage doorstep. Vivian recognized her from the photos Bennett had found. 8 years older now, lines around her eyes, gray streaking her brown hair, but still the same woman who had walked the same path before her. I know I shouldn't be here, Grace said. The NDA, the settlement, I could lose everything if they find out I talked to you. Then why did you come? Because I've been watching the news, seeing your face everywhere, remembering what it felt like. Grace's voice cracked slightly. And because my daughter asked me to. Joanna? She's 11 now, old enough to understand some things, not old enough for others. Grace paused. She came home from school last week and asked me if what happened to you happened to me too. If Daddy had done the same things to both of us. What did you tell her? The truth, as much of it as I could. Grace's eyes were bright with unshed tears. She asked me to come see you, to tell you that you're not alone, that someone else understands. Vivian stepped back from the doorway. Come in, she said. Please. They talked for 4 hours about Grant, about Claudette, about the machinery of destruction the Ashford family had perfected over generations. I thought I was the problem, Grace admitted. For years after the divorce, I thought if I had been a better wife, more patient, more understanding, less demanding. That's what they want us to think, that it's our fault they can't be faithful. I know that now. It took years of therapy to understand. Grace laughed bitterly. Therapy I had to pay for myself because the settlement barely covered the basics once their lawyers were done. $2 million. Sounds like a lot, doesn't it? Until you try to rebuild a life in one of the most expensive cities in the country, with a child to raise, with no professional contacts because they have all been poisoned against you. Malcolm told me what they did, the rumors, the isolation. Malcolm. Grace's expression shifted, became more complex. He was always kind to me. I sometimes wondered if he was just playing a role. I think he was. Back then. I think something has changed. What makes you say that? Vivian told her about the USB drive, about the emails, about Malcolm's revelation that Claudette had insisted on the infidelity clause. Grace was silent for a long moment after she finished. She wanted the clause, Grace finally said, because of Douglas. Grant's father? Her husband, who had affairs their entire marriage, who humiliated her repeatedly, who died before she could ever make him pay. Grace shook her head slowly. I always assumed Claudette was protecting Grant. Now I wonder if she was waiting. Waiting for what? For someone to use the weapon she never could. For someone to destroy the son the way she couldn't destroy the father. Grace met Vivian's eyes. Claudette doesn't love Grant, not really. She loves the family name, the empire, the legacy. Grant is just the current holder of those things. You're saying she might not protect him? I'm saying she'll protect whoever protects the legacy. If that's Grant, she'll fight for him. If that's you and your 4 children, Grace paused. She might change sides. Vivian considered this, the politics of powerful families, the shifting loyalties of self-interest. I'm not interested in being another Ashford, she said. I want out, a clean break, enough resources to raise my children safely. Then that's your strategy. Make yourself more useful as an ally than an enemy. Give Claudette a reason to let you go. And if she won't, Grace smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. Then you use everything you have. The evidence, the public sympathy, the legal weapons Bennett is building. She paused. And you hope it's enough. After Grace left, Vivian sat alone in the cottage's small living room. The sun was setting over the ocean, orange and pink and gold reflecting off the water. She thought about patterns, about cycles of abuse passing down through generations, about women who had faced the same man, the same family, the same choices. Grace had chosen survival, had taken what she could get and escaped. Vivian had the opportunity to choose differently, to break the pattern, to ensure no other woman would face what she and Grace had faced. It would cost her, she knew that. The fight would be longer, harder, more dangerous. But she had 4 heartbeats giving her strength. 4 reasons to change the story. For them, she would become whatever she needed to be. The divorce settlement meeting was scheduled for a Thursday in October. Vivian was 8 months pregnant, so large she could barely walk, so uncomfortable she could barely sleep, so ready to be done with all of it. The meeting was held in Bennett's office, neutral territory, neither the Ashford law firm's gleaming towers nor Vivian's borrowed beach cottage, a place where both sides could pretend to be equals. Grant arrived with 3 attorneys, all men, all wearing identical dark suits, all carrying identical leather briefcases. He looked terrible. Vivian felt a small, petty satisfaction at this. His hair was longer than usual. His suit didn't fit quite right. His eyes had dark circles beneath them that makeup couldn't hide. The consequences of his choices were catching up to him. Vivian, he tried a smile. It didn't reach his eyes. You look, well, I look like I'm carrying 4 babies, which I am. She lowered herself carefully into a chair, Bennett on one side, Rosie on the other. Let's skip the pleasantries. Grant's lead attorney cleared his throat, a tall man with gray hair and cold eyes, the kind of lawyer who specialized in making problems disappear. We've reviewed your proposed settlement, he said. It's ambitious. It's fair, Bennett replied, given the circumstances. The circumstances being your client's emotional state following a traumatic event. The attorney's voice was smooth, patronizing. We understand she's been through a difficult time, but emotional distress isn't a legal justification for excessive demands. Emotional distress, Vivian leaned forward. Is that what we're calling it when your client's mistress stomps on his pregnant wife's belly? That was an unfortunate incident. It was assault, with intent to harm an unborn child, which became 4 unborn children when the ultrasound revealed what your client didn't bother to discover because he was too busy funding his girlfriend's fertility treatments. The attorney's expression flickered, just for a moment. Those allegations are unproven. I have bank records. Vivian's voice was steady. 3 months of preparation, 3 months of gathering evidence, 3 months of preparing for this moment. $12 million transferred to accounts in Tessa Monroe's name, an apartment, a car, jewelry, and bills from 3 separate fertility clinics. Those records were obtained, legally, through proper discovery channels. Check with your colleagues. She paused. Or did you not tell Grant that his partner Malcolm Webb has been cooperating with my legal team? Grant's face went white, actual white, like paper. Malcolm? He's been very helpful. Vivian smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It turns out he has concerns about your business decisions, your judgment, your fitness to lead a company that employs thousands of people. He can't do that. He's my partner. He's a majority shareholder who can call for a board vote whenever he wants. Bennett spoke for the first time, which he's done, scheduled for next month. Grant's attorneys huddled, whispered urgently, their smooth confidence cracking. Let's take a break, the lead attorney said. 10 minutes. They retreated to the hallway. Vivian could see them through the glass walls of the conference room. Grant gesturing wildly, his lawyers trying to calm him. That went well, Rosie murmured. We haven't won yet. No, but they know they can't bulldoze you. That counts for something. When Grant's team returned, their demeanor had changed, less arrogant, more careful. We're prepared to negotiate, the lead attorney said. What are your terms? Full custody of all 4 children, Vivian replied. No visitation rights without my approval. The prenup is voided based on documented infidelity. I receive 40% of all marital assets. 40% is less than half, less than I would be entitled to under normal divorce proceedings. She paused. I'm being generous. And in exchange, I don't release the emails. Grant's head snapped up. What emails? The ones from your company server. 3 years of correspondence with Tessa, with your mother, with your attorneys. Vivian kept her voice neutral. Discussions about managing your affairs, strategies for handling inconvenient wives, plans for what to do if I ever discovered the truth. You can't have those. They're privileged. They're mine now. She held his gaze. The question is whether the public will ever see them. The silence stretched. Grant's attorneys were frozen, calculating the damage, weighing the options. If I agree to your terms, Grant finally said, what guarantees do I have? You have my word, and a legally binding agreement that I will destroy the emails upon completion of our divorce. Vivian paused. Unlike some people in this room, my word actually means something. That's not enough. You need nothing. Vivian's voice cut through his protest. You need nothing from me. Not anymore. For 3 years, I gave you everything. My trust, my love, my future. And you threw it away for hotel rooms and shopping trips with a woman who tried to kill your children. She stood. It was difficult. 8 months pregnant with quadruplets was not meant for dramatic gestures. But she managed. You have 24 hours, she said. Accept my terms, or I release everything. The emails, the photos, the financial records, every piece of evidence I've gathered. She moved toward the door. Your choice, Grant. Just like everything has always been your choice. She walked out without looking back, Rosie and Bennett flanking her. 3 people who had become her army against an empire. Grant's answer came 17 hours later. He accepted everything. The criminal trial of Tessa Monroe began on a gray morning in November. Vivian was 9 months pregnant, so close to delivery that Dr. Cartwright had expressed serious concerns about her attending. The stress could trigger labor, the doctor warned. Your body is ready. The babies are ready. Any additional pressure could start the process. I need to be there, Vivian replied. I need to see this through. Bennett arranged everything. A wheelchair for the courthouse, medical personnel on standby, breaks every 30 minutes. If you feel anything, he warned, anything at all, we leave immediately. The courtroom was packed. Press filled the gallery. Security had banned cameras inside, but artists sketched furiously from the back rows. Every major news outlet was covering the story. Billionaire's mistress attacks pregnant wife. Quadruplets, survivor faces her attacker. Justice for Vivian Ashford. The headlines had been running for weeks. The public had chosen a side. And it wasn't Tessa's. Vivian sat behind the prosecution table. 4 babies pressed against her spine. Her legs ached. Her back screamed. But she was there. Present. Refusing to be a victim, hiding at home. Tessa Monroe entered in a prison jumpsuit. Orange fabric hanging on a frame that had grown thin. Her blonde hair was darker now, the expensive highlights growing out. Her face was pale and pinched. She looked nothing like the woman in white who had stormed a baby shower with rage in her eyes. Their gazes met across the courtroom. Vivian expected to feel anger, hatred, the burning desire for revenge that she had nursed through weeks of recovery. Instead, she felt something unexpected: pity. This woman had wasted years of her life on a man who was incapable of love, had spent Grant's money on fertility treatments that would never work, had attacked a pregnant stranger out of jealousy and desperation, and now she would spend the next decade in prison, alone, forgotten, while Grant moved on to his next conquest. The trial lasted 4 days. The prosecution presented their evidence methodically: 17 videos from guest phones, text messages with timestamps, financial records showing Grant's payments, fertility clinic records proving Tessa's desperation. The attack played on a screen in the darkened courtroom. Every angle, every second, the push, the fall, the stomp. Jurors flinched. Some looked away. One woman in the front row openly wept. Tessa's defense attorney tried everything: temporary insanity, emotional manipulation by Grant, who had strung her along for years, claims that Vivian had provoked the attack. The jury wasn't buying it. On the third day Vivian testified, she needed help reaching the stand, Bennett on one side, a bailiff on the other. The whole courtroom watched her struggle up 3 steps while carrying 4 babies who were eager to be born. Mrs. Ashford, the prosecutor, was gentle, respectful. Can you describe what happened on September 15th? Vivian told the story, simply, without drama: the baby shower, the perfect weather, the woman in white who arrived uninvited. She said Grant had promised to leave me, that the baby was complicating things. Vivian paused. I didn't know I was carrying quadruplets. I thought it was just one baby, one complication, one reason she hated me. Did you have any contact with the defendant before that day? I had never seen her before in my life. I didn't know she existed until she screamed her name at my baby shower. The defense cross-examined her aggressively, tried to paint her as a gold digger who had trapped Grant with pregnancy. You expect us to believe you married a billionaire without knowing about his other relationships? I expect you to believe the truth, which is that he lied to me for 3 years while spending millions of dollars on the woman who attacked me. And you never suspected? I suspected. I hoped I was wrong. I chose to trust my husband. Vivian met the defense attorney's eyes. Is that a crime now? Trusting your spouse? The lawyer had no response. On the 4th day, closing arguments were delivered. The prosecution summarized the evidence methodically. The defense made one final attempt to paint Tessa as a victim. The jury deliberated for 2 hours and 17 minutes. Vivian waited in a private room. Bennett paced. Rosie held her hand. Dr. Cartwright monitored the babies remotely. They're active, the doctor reported. They know something important is happening. We all do, the bailiff appeared at the door. Verdict's in. The walk back to the courtroom was the longest of Vivian's life. Every step was effort. Every breath was conscious. She made it to her seat just as the jury filed in. 12 faces, 12 strangers who had heard the story and reached a conclusion. The foreperson stood, a middle-aged man with glasses and a quiet voice. We, the jury, in the case of the state versus Tessa Marie Monroe Syndrome, finding the defendant guilty of assault with intent to cause bodily harm to an unborn child. Vivian exhaled. Beside her, Rosie squeezed her hands so hard it hurt. Due to the enhanced charges relating to the pregnancy and the premeditated nature of the attack, we recommend the maximum sentence. The judge nodded. Sentencing will proceed. Tessa stood. Her face was blank, empty. Whatever future she had imagined with Grant, it was over now. Tessa Marie Monroe, you are hereby sentenced to 8 years in state prison. You will be eligible for parole in 5 years. Upon release, you are prohibited from any contact with the victim or her children. 8 years. She would be 35 when she got out, still young enough to rebuild a life. But the woman who walked into prison today would not be the same woman who eventually walked out. As guards led her away, Tessa turned to look at Vivian one final time. He'll never love you, she said. He's incapable of it. He'll find someone else. He always does. Vivian didn't respond, didn't need to. She knew Tessa was right. Grant would find someone else, another woman to charm, another wife to betray, another heart to break. But it wouldn't be her problem anymore. She was free. The babies arrived 3 days after the verdict, 4:47 in the morning. Vivian woke to a sensation she couldn't describe. Not pain exactly, pressure, movement, the feeling of something inevitable beginning. She called Dr. Cartwright, called Rosie, called Bennett because he had become part of her family now. The cesarean was scheduled for 6 a.m. By 6:43, it was over. 4 babies, 2 girls, 2 boys. They weighed 8 pounds total, tiny but strong, pink and squirming and absolutely perfect. "Do you have names?" the nurse asked, placing the first baby in Vivian's arms. "Charlotte." Vivian looked at her daughter's face, wrinkled and red and beautiful. "After my grandmother." The second baby arrived, another girl. "Evelyn, for my mother." The third was a boy, small but fierce, already crying with impressive volume. "Samuel, my grandfather." The fourth was the smallest, quiet and watchful, eyes that seemed to take in everything. "James, because he looks like a James." Charlotte, Evelyn, Samuel, James, her family, her future, her reason for everything she had endured. Grant requested a visit. Vivian denied it. Claudette sent flowers. Vivian had them donated to the hospital's general ward. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. 40% of marital assets. Full custody. No visitation without approval. The prenup voided. The infidelity clause activated exactly as intended. Vivian received enough money to raise 4 children comfortably for the rest of their lives. Enough to never worry about security again. Enough to start fresh wherever she chose. She chose a house inland from the beach cottage. 4 bedrooms, a yard. Neighbors who smiled and waved instead of gossiping and scheming. Rosie moved in permanently, became Aunt Rosie to the babies, partner in the exhausting, exhilarating work of raising quadruplets. Grace Harlow visited monthly, brought Joanna to meet her half-siblings. 2 families united by the same man's failures, building something better together. Malcolm Webb stopped by occasionally, bringing updates about Ashford Industries, about Grant's diminishing role, about the company that was slowly being rebuilt under new leadership. "He's still technically CEO," Malcolm reported on one visit, "but the board has limited his authority. He attends meetings, signs documents, makes no actual decisions." "Is that enough?" Vivian asked. "The consequences he's facing?" "Probably not, but it's a start." Malcolm paused. "And there's something else. Claudette has been diagnosed with early-stage dementia. She's stepping back from public life." Vivian thought about the woman who had watched her get attacked, who had threatened her, who had built a family culture of cruelty and betrayal. She felt no satisfaction in Claudette's diagnosis, only weariness at the cycle of damage that family had created. And Tessa? Prison, 4 years into her sentence. Model prisoner, apparently. She'll probably get parole next year. Will she try to contact Grant? I doubt it. She's written letters. He hasn't responded to any of them. Malcolm shook his head. He's already moved on, dating a 26-year-old socialite. The pattern continues. The pattern, the cycle, the endless repetition of broken promises and shattered lives. But not for Vivian, not anymore. 1 year after the attack, she returned to the Ashford estate, not as a guest, not as a former wife seeking closure, as an owner. She had used part of her settlement to purchase the garden where Tessa had attacked her. The rose bushes were gone, the fancy furniture removed, the pretentious landscaping replaced with wildflowers and simple benches. Charlotte's house opened its doors in September, a shelter for women escaping domestic violence, a place where they could find safety, support, and the resources to rebuild their lives. The dedication ceremony was so small. No press, no fanfare. Just the staff who would run it and the women who would live there and Vivian with her 4 children. The plaque by the entrance read, "For every woman told she was imagining things." Vivian stood in the garden where she had fallen, where Tessa's heel had come down, where everything had shattered and then slowly, painfully transformed into something better. Charlotte giggled at a butterfly. Evelyn grabbed a fistful of grass. Samuel slept peacefully in his stroller. James watched everything with those thoughtful eyes. This is where it happened, Vivian told them softly. This is where your mama learned she was stronger than she knew. They didn't understand, wouldn't for years. But someday she would tell them the whole story. The betrayal, the attack, the recovery, the woman she had been and the woman she had become. She would tell them about Grace and Joanna, about Malcolm and Bennett, about Rosie who had never left her side. She would tell them that their father was not a good man, that the family they had inherited was broken, that there were people who would try to hurt them simply because of their name, and she would tell them that none of that defined them, that they had the power to choose who they became, that the cycle of damage could end with them if they had the courage to stop it. Mrs. Ashford? Vivian turned. A young woman stood nearby, dark hair, tired eyes, a bruise fading on her cheek. I just moved in, the woman said, to the shelter. They told me the lady who started this place would be here today. I'm Vivian, just Vivian, not Mrs. Ashford, not anymore. I saw you on the news. What happened to you? The woman hesitated. I wanted to say thank you for building this place, for understanding what it's like. I didn't understand, not until it happened to me. Vivian smiled gently. Now I do. And I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you got out. It's hard, harder than I expected. It is. The hardest thing you'll ever do. She reached out, took the woman's hand. But you're not alone. None of us are. Not anymore. They stood together in the garden. Two women, one story, different chapters. Vivian thought about all the women who would pass through this place, all the lives that would be changed, all the patterns that would be broken. She thought about her four children, about the future she was building for them, about the legacy she would leave behind. She used to count the things she had lost. Now she counted the things she had grown. She used to apologize for existing. Now she built places where other women could exist without apology. She used to be Grant Ashford's wife, a role she had played for 3 years, a part in a story she hadn't written. Now she was the author of her own story, the architect of her own future, the woman who had survived and transformed and risen. Charlotte reached up from the stroller, tiny fingers grasping. Vivian lifted her daughter, held her against her chest, felt the heartbeat that had once been inside her now beating strong and free. We did it, she whispered. All 5 of us. We made it through. The sun was setting over Charlotte's house, golden light on the wildflowers, purple shadows stretching across the lawn. Tomorrow there would be more challenges, more work, more struggles. But tonight there was peace. There was love. There was the quiet certainty that everything she had endured had led to this moment. Vivian Ashford was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone braver, someone who had walked through fire and emerged transformed. Just Vivian, mother of 4, survivor, builder, fighter, herself. Finally, completely, magnificently herself. 5 years later, Charlotte's house had expanded to 7 locations across 3 states. Vivian published a memoir titled 4 Heartbeats. It became a bestseller, not because of the scandal, not because of the money, because women everywhere recognized themselves in its pages. The final chapter was what resonated most. I used to think my story was about betrayal, about a husband who lied and a mistress who attacked and a family who tried to silence me. But I was wrong. My story was never about them. It was about discovering who I was when everything else was stripped away, about learning that the only approval I ever needed was my own, about finding strength I didn't know I had and using it to build something beautiful. If you're reading this and recognizing yourself in my words, please know, you are not alone, you are not crazy, you are not imagining things, and you are so much stronger than you think. The prison door has been unlocked all along. All you have to do is walk through it. With love and hope, Vivian. Charlotte, Evelyn, Samuel, and James grew up knowing the truth, knowing their story, knowing that they were wanted and loved and fought for. They knew the shelter existed because of what happened to their mother. They knew that some families are broken and some families are chosen. They knew that their worth was not determined by their name, but by their choices. And they knew above all else that their mother had never stopped fighting for them, not once, not ever. And that's how a woman they underestimated rewrote her entire story. If Vivian's journey touched your heart today, do me a small favor. Hit that like button. It tells me you want more stories like this one. Drop a comment below. Tell me which moment hit you the hardest. Was it the attack, the betrayal, or the moment she finally fought back? I read every single comment. Your words mean the world to me. And if you haven't already, subscribe and tap that notification bell. New stories drop every week. Stories about women who refuse to stay silent. Women who rise when the world expects them to fall. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Someone who might be fighting their own battle. Sometimes a story is exactly the medicine we need. Thank you for staying until the end. You're not just a viewer, you're part of this community. Until next time, stay strong, stay brave, and remember, your story isn't over yet.